So this is Feng Qiuying. I used to call her Feng 老师, so teacher Feng. And she's doing, it looks like a broadsword plus whipchain form. So she's got two weapons in her hands. And so if you notice, the whipchain plus the broadsword. And this is very advanced coordination, right? It takes you a while to get to these forms. So, of course, you're not going to be using this in a fight, right? This is definitely more dance, but it's athleticism plus coordination. That's what it is. It's not like she's a good fighter or anything, but still. I look at this, I'm like, wow, I am so lucky that she was my first Kung Fu teacher. So, this is a hip flexor and ab workout right there. And for those of you who've done Kung Fu or done this type of Wushu type of Kung Fu, have you ever done the whip chain or done the broadsword? Here's another clip. So when I knew her, of course she was a little bit older than this, right? But she had this type of hair. And when she was in Chicago, when I met her, she also gained a little weight. But she definitely had this type of hair and the vibe was still the same. So again, she's doing the broadsword plus the chain whip. It's really funny because I only saw her do the straight sword form before, so I've never seen her do the broadsword. I don't know why maybe because she never had a broadsword when she came to Chicago or something. I don't know. It's hard to come by. I really don't know. But yeah, so this was later, in 87. So here we have, this was the Asia Games. This was actually the first Asia Wushu Championship. So this was also 1989. And this was her doing a spear form. Let's jump back. I don't know why that clip had an issue, but so hopefully it wasn't a little glitch. Yeah, it was good. It looks like it's just, maybe I'll find it on another platform to see if that was part of the footage or just the transfer. So, not to say her spear form isn't good, but the spear form has evolved a lot since her time. So when I started doing Kung Fu again many years later, when I came back to the U.S. after being back in China, so this was the 2000s, the spear forms had evolved so much, and the spear people, especially the ladies doing the spear, were just so good. So my standard of comparison is a little different, but again, I never saw her do any of this when I was training with her. She mostly taught us the bare hand stuff. I don't think we ever got to the point where we were doing weapons. The weapon stuff was when I went back to China, and so I started it with my second Kung Fu coach. And I'm trying to get footage from him too. So I guess what this might become is you'll get to see footage of all my past coaches. I mean, you've seen some of my kickboxing coaches, but this is a trip down memory lane with my Kung Fu coaches. Zhejiang Wushu. So this is the official site of one of the provinces in China and their Wushu organization. And so you go down here, and looks like in the 70s, she was already part of their group. And by the way, Hu Jianqiang, if you're familiar, he was in a lot of Jet Li movies. Yeah, so in the 80s, my coach was winning a lot of awards. And then in 87, makes sense, she came to the U.S. And then she kind of stopped competing after that because she settled down in the U.S. And when I met her almost 10 years later, I didn't realize that she was already almost 10 years out of the game, putting a lot of pieces together. She was retired by then, basically. She was just kind of teaching on the side, just as a hobby. So I was attending the Chinese school on the weekends when I was in Chicago just to keep up my Chinese culture. And I remember Coach Feng. She was such a nice, just chill person. You would have never known that she was trained to be a Wushu athlete. I told a lot of you in the community section, but I'm telling you guys here, I remember the first class ever. She had the parents in there, right? Just so she could tell us what we were all getting into. And she had all these books. I do not know where she got these books. She must have brought these books over from China, but they were these books detailing the history of her team and different Kung Fu styles in China. I don't even know where you could buy these books anymore, but she had them. And I remember me and this other kid, I think the kid's name was Ross. And me and Ross were flipping through the books and kind of, you know what little kids do, right? We create stories based on the pictures. And I remember there was one where a guy was winding up his leg to throw a kick. And Ross said, oh, look at that. This guy's leg is stuck in the ground. All this time while Ross and I were bantering, Coach Feng was trying to talk to the parents. And my dad had to tell me to be quiet a few times. She ends the introduction section. Now it's time to get the kids warmed up. Of course, all of us growing up on Power Rangers, Jackie Chan, and Bruce Lee movies, we just start play fighting. For 10 minutes, we're just like, "Hua! Hua! Hua!" And we wouldn't stop, man. All the parents were yelling at us, but we're little boys. We didn't care. We were just too excited. We're about to learn how to quote-unquote fight, right? So for 10 minutes, we're just like, whoa, whoa, and then just doing these moves on each other. Coach Feng just kind of stood there and just laughed, and she just kind of waited it out. All the parents were getting frustrated. They're like, you're making us look bad in front of the coach. Coach Feng was just kind of standing there laughing. I don't think she had kids at the time. She might have. I don't know. She was just like, this is funny. Let these kids tire themselves out. And lo and behold, 10 minutes later, we calmed down. And then we started class. And of course, most martial arts, you start out stretching, right? Then you start out doing different moves, etc., etc. That was the first class. I'll never forget it. My second Kung Fu coach was in China. And if that were to happen to his class, he would have taken a bamboo stick and hit us all, right? But this is American. Coach Feng was just a different personality. I knew she had accolades, but it's really cool to see how she moved back when she was actively training. And the footage we could find was sort of on the tail end of her wushu career when she was already studying. I believe she became an accountant. And that's the final thing I wanted to express, is that I think the reason why she was such a good coach was because she didn't rely on this for any sort of income. She just did this because she studied Kung Fu and she wanted to teach. She wasn't reliant on it. So she didn't have to stroke anyone's ego. She didn't have to teach any bullshito. She just taught what she wanted to teach. You know, training in China was grueling. And then when I came back to America, I had some really toxic environments for Kung Fu training. But if I didn't have Coach Feng, those 2 years where she really built up my interest, actually, it might not even been 2 years, it might have been a year and a half, then I think I don't even know if I would have continued this martial arts journey. And so that's why I really, really want to find Coach Feng. I hope I can find her.